Hello, I'm Henry, and I read a book. I read this book. Yes, this counts as a book. Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life by Brian Lee O'Malley, and I would like to talk about it, please. I like Scott Pilgrim, both the film and the comic series. Is that an unpopular opinion? I'm not sure. I feel like both are a little divisive. This is my second read through of the comic series, and I liked it just as much this time as I did the first time around. I know Scott himself is a wretched knobhead, shameless and selfish, toxic and an out-and-out bad dude. But that's kind of the point, and he's a little less of those things at the end of the series. Though I can see how off-putting he can be, and there's nothing wrong with giving up on him before he completes his character arc. He's just that much of a mug. So I like this series despite the main character. For two reasons, I think. The first is tone. It's got a feel to it, a vibe, sort of cozy and down to earth, relatable and normal. It's very slice of life, which for anyone who has only seen the movie might be a little hard to pass. But the comics are longer, with a lot more and a lot longer periods of downtime, with fleshing characters out, with them just hanging out and talking. It's very nice. With the second is the nuts to butts, balls to the wall action. And within that action, the crazy and creative superpowers. Real quick, if you're not familiar, Scott Pilgrim tells the story of Scott Pilgrim and his goal to date a girl named Ramona Flowers. Ramona has 7 evil exes, and Scott needs to defeat them all in battle before he can date her. But these battles aren't just your run-of-the-mill fights in a Wetherspoon car park. No, they're supercharged psychedelic trips with all kinds of superpowers flying left, right and centre. Now, if someone asked you what are the superpowers in Scott Pilgrim, you'd probably shrug and go, video gamey stuff? And you would be correct. Everything Scott Pilgrim and the 7 evil exes do can fall under the umbrella of video gamey stuff with health bars and power-ups and coins and items. It's a pretty cool and unique aesthetic, but what if you could be more correct? What if you could suck all the fun out of the series by finding every single instance of Scott Pilgrim himself doing something superhuman, drill down to what actually and exactly it is, cross-reference it with the Superpower wiki, and create a definitive, itemized list of everything he can do. Now I know every single person watching this has just paused the video to go and do exactly that, so let me just stop you right there. Don't worry about it, I'm about to do it for you. I'm going to go through each of the 6 Scott Pilgrim comics. We're doing just the first one today, deduce just how superhuman he is, and then answer the question that no one is asking. Can Scott Pilgrim beat Superman in a fight? Okay, the first superhuman thing we see Scott Pilgrim do, he doesn't really do, and he doesn't really have control of. And it might not even be a superhuman feat of his, but I'm counting it anyway. Scott Pilgrim has a subspace highway running through his head. I don't have one of those. Do you? Like I said, he doesn't actually use this subspace highway himself, at least in this book. It's much more of a Ramona thing, so there's no point in looking it up on the wiki, or really factoring it in the ultimate battle against Superman, but the fact that it's there counts as something. Next thing, Scott can break the 4th wall. The wiki has a page called 4th Wall Awareness, and says, the user is aware that one's universe is a fictional/false one, allowing them to carry out acts that, within the universe, would otherwise be impossible. Depending on the extent of the user's power, one could potentially gain powers of reality warping and or omniscience within the context of their own false universe. I mean, that doesn't sound too good for Superman's chances if you ask me. But for the moment, Scott's interactions with the 4th wall don't seem to go beyond him knowing it's there, rather than interacting with it or manipulating it in any way. So this might not be the game changer the wiki makes it sound like. Okay, so when the fight with the first evil X begins, we get to see a whole bunch of things Scott can do. The guy comes blasting in through the ceiling, and Scott not only reacts instantly to it, but blocks the attack with one hand. He then boots the guy into the air with one kick, then proceeds to punch him 64 times while they're both still in the air. He's also able to have a conversation with this guy whilst dodging all his attacks. All these things seem to point to Scott being physically not normal. Strength, speed, endurance, reactions, accuracy, durability, balance, agility. He's got all that good stuff and more. Fortunately, the Superpower Wiki collates all these things into the handy catch-all category of body. And they break body down into 5 different levels. So it will be just a matter of us deciding which of those 5 levels Scott Pilgrim falls under. The first one is peak human body. User is at the highest natural physical condition that a human can reach. Scott is above this. I don't care how much you're going to the gym, you're not kicking a guy into the air and then punching him 64 times. The next level is enhanced body type 1. Strong enough to lift small cars and bend metal, fast enough to move at/beyond the speed of automobiles, durable enough to withstand being thrown off tall buildings. This might be Scott. Put a pin in it. The third level is enhanced body type 2, strong enough to lift heavy vehicles and punch through steel, fast enough to move at subsonic speeds, agile enough to leap over small buildings and dodge supersonic attacks, durable enough to withstand bullets, grenades, and low to medium explosives. We might have to do a bit of death battle style analysis here to confirm whether Scott is this or not. Put a pin in this one too. The fourth level is supernatural body. User is blatantly more physically powerful than other members of their species. This isn't very specific, so let's drill down. Look who it is. There isn't much else here, so let's drill down even further into supernatural strength. Look who it is again. Here we go. Depending on the users, they are capable lifting from massive vehicles to large airplanes and able to lift massive boulders and locomotives with ease. Yeah, Scott Pilgrim can't do this. At least not yet. The fifth and final level of enhanced body is moot, but let's just rule it out anyway. Absolute body, the ultimate type. The user has no limits to their physical abilities. Scott ain't this either. Okay, so it's between enhanced bodies type 1 and type 2. I'd say he's definitely type 1, but the question is if he's type 2 or not. This bit, the punch through steel fast enough to move at subsonic speeds bit, I think is key. I mentioned a moment ago that the guy Scott fights punches his way into the building through its ceiling. Buildings tend to be made of, amongst other things, steel. So if this guy can punch through steel and Scott has no trouble matching him, I would say Scott Pilgrim can also punch through steel. Can he move at subsonic speeds though? Well, technically anything below 250 miles per hour is subsonic. So technically I move at subsonic speeds when I'm walking back from Tesco's with 2 bags of shopping. But for the sake of argument, let's work out how fast Scott is. He punches this man 64 times in midair. Say that the rough average distance of a punch is half the average arm span of 170 centimeters, so 85 centimeters, which multiplied by 64 is 54.4 meters. He covers that distance in the time it takes for him to fall from the apex of a jump to the ground. Let's say that's 1 second is this slapdash, yes. So he's moving at 54.4 meters per second, which converts as to 120.8 miles per hour. Pretty fast, but below the 250 miles per hour threshold needed for supersonic speed. So yes, he's moving at subsonic speeds. Confirmation, it seems, that Scott Pilgrim has a Type 2 enhanced body. How does this compare to the Superman? Well, you saw the boy in blue in the pictures on the pages for the levels above this one, so that probably answers that. The only other superhuman ability that Scott Pilgrim displays in this book is a strange reflective force field generated by him and 6 other people. It has the ability to block several fireball-style attacks, then trap the people who shot them in some form of electrical paralysis. Like I said, a bit strange, but quite easy to find on the wiki. Force field generation. This page reads, well, it actually reads quite a lot. Here's the URL if you'd like to read it yourself. The abridged version. Force fields are capable of blocking impending approaching objects and nullifying attacks, including physical and energy-based attacks, or even repelling them or reflecting them, as well as being used as a means of containment to imprison others. This sounds a lot like what Scott Pilgrim can do. So what are its upper limits? Well, the wiki's got you covered there too, because with like the enhanced body, it breaks force field generation down into levels too. Okay, I hope you're ready for this. With basic level including armor creation, force armor generation, aura generation, energetic pressure, damage negation reduction, deflection, attack reversal, damage reflection, power reflection, elemental generation, energy matter generation, energy projection, exoskeleton, plating protrusion, shell formation, impact/immunity reduction, physical force generation, physical force replication, shield construction, elemental shield construction, energy shield construction, shield protrusion, surface creation, platform creation, wall generation, elemental wall generation, energy wall generation, force field wall generation. Advanced level including Attraction and repulsion, attraction field, aversion field, repulsion field, bubble generation, bubble encapsulation, concussive force, concussive blast, pressure strike, cutting, force field cutting, impale, force field vision, flight field protection, flight field projection, flight bestowal, force field imprisonment, binding, holographic projection, image generation, matter surfing using force fields, orbit creation, orbital field, physical force negation reduction, shape generation, ball creation, block generation, disc creation, parasol creation, ring creation. Expert level including assimilation shield, energy absorption, energy assimilation, ball projection, giant ball projection, multi-ball projection, barrier strike, telekinetic strike, beam emission, multi-beam emission, tractor beam emission, bolt projection, expanding bolts, damaging field projection, cutting field projection, destructive field projection, force field telekinesis, force field flight, telekinetic cutting, telekinetic aura, telekinetic exoskeleton, telekinetic tethering, physical force defiance / infringement, pillar projection, selective force field, strike projection, bore projection / projection, vibration emission, vibration blast, vortex creation, vacuum creation, wave emission, cutting wave, focused, oh my god, I zoomed in, focus shock blast, omnidirectional waves, shockwave generation, wind blast, air blast. Ultimate level including appendage generation, tendril generation, tentacle manifestation, AOP, arrow generation, binding generation, this is all force fields, chain creation, container creation, obstruction creation, rope generation, thread generation, whip generation, wire generation, blade construction, I zoomed in again, blade projection, bludgeon construction, hammer generation, bullet projection, cube projection, disc projection, entrapment projection field, kinetic absorption field, infusion, energy infusion, physical force immunity, pole arm construction. Why is that not in one of the other ones? Spear construction, ring projection, sensory field generation, telekinetic senses, spike projection, structure creation, fortification, room creation. Nearly done. An absolute level including absorption field projection, draining field projection, concealment field projection, inaudibility, inodorosity, I don't know what that is, I'll look that up later. Invisibility extension, invisibility infusion, unnoticeability, entropy negation field, environmental field projection, atmosphere creation, isolation field generation, imperceptibility, safety field projection. Jesus Navas, I had no idea force fields were so complicated. Okay, we've had a glass of water and we've calmed down. I think, based on that insane list, Scott falls in to the first level, the basic level, with a couple of aspects falling into the next one, the advanced level. I'm not sure that's enough to survive a punch from a guy who once lifted 200 quintillion tons with one hand. And that's all we see from Scott Pilgrim in this first comic. Okay, so let's, real quick, answer the question no one's asking. Can Scott Pilgrim beat Superman in a fight? I would say no, not at the moment. He's definitely superhuman, but not quite superhuman enough to mess with the Man of Steel. The problem with doing this with just the first book is there's only one fight in it, so there's not much to work with. What I could have done is done one video for the whole series and given a definitive answer at the end of that. But then how could I have stretched this concept over multiple weeks? Hello, thanks for getting to the end of the video. Like and subscribe and all that good stuff. I did manage to stick to that schedule that I had planned, and it wasn't too strenuous or anything, so hopefully that will be it going forward. So expect to see a new long form video in 3 weeks. 3 weeks.